A new study projects that the Inflation Reduction Act, or the IRA, may actually create as many as 400,000 new jobs in the US economy over the next 5 years. And another study shows that about half of the world's economies are living 5 or more years beyond the peak use of fossil fuel energy, and that actually, for the first time in recorded history, that CO2 emissions may actually go down in 2023. And the digital economy, especially the rapid adoption of artificial intelligence, is set to put additional strains on an already strained electrical grid worldwide. I'm Jay Warmke with Blue Rock Station, and this is the news from the solar industry for the week of November 5th. All right, well, first off, regulators, utilities, developers, they all got together at Grid Tech Connect Forum in Newport, Rhode Island recently, discussing a lot of the issues that are associated with the delays that are accumulating in the connection of generating facilities to the electrical grid. In fact, back in 2005, it was about 2 years from start to finish for a solar array to be connected to the grid. By 2022, that amount of time had doubled, largely due to delays in interconnection, to about 4 years for the same thing. Now, utility developers or grid-connected developers are claiming that it's taking more than 5 years just to get approval for connection to the grid. So the Department of Energy has come up with a new roadmap on how to address this. A lot of this addresses the transparency issues that are involved in the interconnection process. Oftentimes, those people who are developing the systems don't realize a lot of the costs that are going to be imposed upon them at a specific location, which may make the project uneconomical. There's also, they're looking at speeding up the process, making it better, streamlining it, making it quicker, of course. And then they're also talking about, rather than dealing with the first in, first looked at application process, which leads a lot of developers to simply put forward speculative programs, apply because they may go forward, they may not. But if you're waiting 5 years, let's get in the queue. And rather than prioritize those that seem to have a better economic impact. And then, of course, through all of this, they want to keep the grid reliable. So what we found during the delays is that they claim one of the reasons for these long delays is the lack of long distance and high capacity transmission line. Well, the DoD just recently announced a $1.3 billion project, 3 transmission lines going across 6 states. It's going to add about 3.5 gigawatts to the transmission capacity. Although that's a drop in the bucket because currently there are over 2,000 gigawatts of renewable energy projects already in the queue. A new study by E2 projects that as 300,000 jobs may be created in the construction of those renewable energy projects that have already been announced, largely due to the IRA or the Inflation Reduction Act, and that about 100,000 more jobs that will be permanent will be associated with these new generating facilities. And this study notes that there was a significant investment being put forward by private companies, about $156 billion to the economy so far. The largest investment far and away is in EV and battery technology. And a lot of this battery technology activity is taking place in what they're calling the battery belt. These are some southern states such as Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, North and South Carolina that are receiving a lot of these funds. Despite the major impact of this legislation, a new poll finds that 71% of Americans, when asked, say that they have either never heard of the Inflation Reduction Act or they know almost nothing about it. An independent energy think tank known as Ember has issued a report that found over 50% of the world's economies are living 5 or more years in the post-fossil fuel peak age for generating power. This represents about 170 different economies. Now, in these economies, emissions have fallen by over 20% in the last decade. 78 of these economies, in fact, have replaced fossil fuels as the majority source of power generation to renewable energy as the majority source of power generating. A lot of this activity has taken place in the EU, in North America, and also in Oceania, which is Australia, New Zealand, and the islands in that region. Only Asia and the Middle East are still living in the pre-peak fossil fuel era. The report further says that 2023 may actually be the first year where CO2 emissions worldwide will actually decline. And there's been a lot of talk recently about artificial intelligence, how quickly that's coming to fruition, and the benefits it may present to society, and also the dangers that it may pose to society. But the one thing that we know for certain, it's going to use a lot of electricity. For example, all of these growths of digital technologies are taking a toll on the grid. Bitcoin, the largest cryptocurrency process, just in the process of generating Bitcoin, it uses up as much electricity as the nation of Norway consumes in a year. 2 to 3% of all of the global all the global electricity is consumed by data centers. Another example is 5G networks use 3 times as much power as 4G networks did. In fact, telecommunications or telecom, the electric use within that sector is poised to grow by 150 to 170% by 2026. And in the world of artificial intelligence, maybe the most visible of these is ChatGPT. Well, ChatGPT 3 required to train that program about as much electricity as it would take to run a suburban home for about 120 years. But ChatGPT 4 required 275 times as much electricity. And as these systems get bigger and more complex, then the need for these continues to grow. In fact, a recent study showed that AI servers by 2027 are going to require between 85 and 135 terawatt hours each year, which is about as much energy as it takes to run the nations of Argentina or Sweden. And that's the news from the solar industry for this week. We'll see you next week.